because the CIA has run the drug business forever. You know what I mean? So
why did the CIA get involved in the drug business?
Because that's the only way they can get money. They can't get
Okay.
money directly from the government.
Okay.
So they have to use underground money, right, to be able to overthrow a government.
Is it still the same right now? I mean, like not drugs, but they get funded by the government.
No, they don't get funded by the government.
Really?
The government doesn't fund drugs.
No. I mean, like the CIA.
The CIA is still involved in the drug business. They will never. They arrest plane. Well, they had in South America. They had a deal that they called Operation. It was like a Mexican Express. What was the name of it? It's like a Mexican Express. They had like a flight pattern that they used, right? That was under their control, where they could fly cocaine in and out of America, you know. And so Operation Mayan Express. And so the coke would be sent Mayan Express to Mena, Arkansas, and in Mena, Arkansas, they got the coke, sold it. The crack epidemic was all supported and supplied by that connection from the Mayan Express connection through Mena, Arkansas. That whole epidemic in the 80s was supplied by that. And the CIA would send guns to the Contras and supply them with arms. They would get the cocaine back and bring it back on the planes, and then they would sell it in America. The CIA has always been the biggest drug dealers in the world, you know. As an example, I had someone that I know as, I'll think of his name in a minute, but he was working with some people that I'm very against in Amsterdam, and he was working with these agents that were working in Pakistan. It's a funny thing in Amsterdam. It's a funny thing. There was somebody in Amsterdam who came from America who supposedly ran away from America because he got busted in a grow bus in Santa Cruz, and that he made it out and got his seed bank and made it to the Netherlands. Now, he was supposed to have been wanted in the United States for growing, yet he was the only one to be able to get a medical license to be able to produce medicinal seeds in Amsterdam legally by the government. In fact, he was supported to have that license, right? Hortifarm, you know. He was supported by the DEA and governments to get that license before, accredited universities and PhDs. Now, 1 minute, I thought he was wanted in America. No, he's undercover in Amsterdam. So there's a lot of subterfuge in this. And so this guy, he met a CIA guy in Amsterdam, and the guy said, listen, we want you to come and work with us in Mexico and improve their stock and improve their methods so we can, sell it in the States. So he went to Mexico and started to work for these guys. When he went to Mexico, he made some friends with the Mexicans, you know, and the first thing that they did, the cartel there is bring a guy out and put him in front of this Canadian guy and said, this is what we do to informants. And they took a gun and blew the guy's head off right in front of him. Now, if that's not enough to scare you, I don't know what will. But those gangs down there are real serious. And they've been operating since the 50s. They ran an operation out of Santa Cruz, Veracruz, where they had a farm and weapons would be sent there and then on to South America where they were doing counter-revolutionary things. And then on the way back, they would bring drugs. So that's been going on for a long, long, long time. That's been going on forever. People don't realize that in the 50s and the 60s, up until around the 70s and 80s, diplomats had diplomatic privilege. They could walk in with whatever. You weren't allowed to search them. So a lot of the drugs back then, and some of the good hash from Lebanon and from all these places used to come in that way by diplomatic privilege. And I have a friend of mine, Douglas Valentine. He wrote a book called "The Strength of the Wolf." Really good book about the DEA and the CIA. And he showed me some paperwork. He said, "This is the biggest heroin dealer of the French Connection, right, from Paris." They used to that was a big connection before the Golden Triangle in Burma, right? It was funny because this is the biggest heroin smuggler in Paris, in France, the French Connection, and these in those days it was the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs before there was the DEA. Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. Then it was called the BNDD, the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. First, it was the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, like instead of the FBI, they were FBN. Then it became the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. The Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and then it became the DEA. After the Vietnam War, the agents that were operating as CIA during the Vietnam War joined and created the Drug Enforcement Agency. They created a drug enforcement agency basically to cover up CIA drug dealing. They caught up several planes, big 707s full of coke, full of drugs, and they crashed in Mexico, and all the paperwork and everything was all fictitious, and they were traced back to the CIA. So it's an ongoing operation. But this guy, the biggest smack dealer in the world, flew in because the Federal Bureau of Narcotics at the time were watching the airport, and they were watching all the Air France flights coming in from Paris. And that's how they would see who was bringing in the drugs and arrest them. This guy came in, and they recognized him, right? He came through. He came into the States, right, and then they watched him come back out from JFK, right. When they went to check the passenger list, he wasn't on it, but they saw him. He wasn't on it. In other words, there was somebody there that just walked him around customs, and he was in. And then when he picked up his money, did his deal, whatever, then they walked him back out, and he got back on the plane and went to Paris. That's the kind of power these people have. So, if there's a drug problem today, it's due to CIA drug dealing. Because they're the ones that created the crack epidemic. They're the ones that created the Golden Triangle. The biggest heroin dealer, one of the biggest heroin dealing organizations of all time was Consupsa. He was the head of the Golden Triangle WO Global brand heroin, the purest heroin, but the French heroin was even purer. But the stuff that they made in the Golden Triangle, it had two lions holding back the globe. WO Global brand heroin. It was a famous thing. And when Mao won the war, and the nationalist Chinese were chased to Taiwan. Taiwan was Formosa, was an independent country. They ran there, took it over, right? And so a lot of their army went to Burma, okay? When they went to Burma, they created the heroin supply chain, the Golden Triangle. So that was the famous Golden Triangle, that was the only heroin, the strongest heroin in the world now that when they shut down the French Connection. Then it was the Golden Triangle. After the Golden Triangle, they shut that down. The CIA moved it to Afghanistan. And then they started making heroin in Afghanistan. That's where so that's all government stuff. How they make illicit money to be able to run their illegal programs in other countries. They've been doing that since forever. There's tons of books about it. I'm not scared about talking about it because you could go to your library and read it. The Strength of the Wolf by Dougie Valentine and a lot of these people. And Dougie Valentine, he showed me these papers, man, of the report that the Federal Bureau of Narcotics had written on how these guys walked in and out of the country. Unbelievable. So that shit's been going on forever. If you want to have a drug war, then put the CIA out of business. You know what I mean? Because they're the ones that are moving all the drugs.
So the government doesn't fund the CIA. I thought that they were always a wing of the government.
They're a wing of the government,
right?
But they can't run their illegal wars with government money.
True.
They have to make the money from somewhere else.
Okay.
So they make the money from the drug industry, and they put it into Iran, the Contras and stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, the Iran-Contra affair, where they were trading guns for dope, and during the Reagan administration, and that was the scandalous stuff. And they've been doing that since forever, because that's the only way that they can get the money that they use to do their counter-revolutionary, their revolutionary and overthrowing governments kind of thing. It has to be illegal money. Can't come directly from the American government. And so the CIA have their own rules. They don't play by anybody's rules, So that's a major, major point. They've been here in Nepal since the 50s. So, I mean, they had all Lo Mustang. That was a CIA drop-off point, but when they used to send guerrillas in to fight with the Kampa guerrillas in to fight with the Chinese and harass the Chinese and get information against the Chinese. They've been doing that since forever. I remember back in the day, you'd have these Kampas come from the mountains, and then they would have rolls of $100 bills. Who is giving those $100 bills? They're CIA control agents, but that's been going on forever. But the drug war is a man-made problem. It has nothing to do with except that some certain people are allowed to do whatever the hell they want, So, and then after they shut down the Golden Triangle, they had a new war in Afghanistan. Afghanistan. I have to be careful. In Afghanistan, they started the Golden Crescent. And first it was the Golden Triangle. Now they have the Golden Crescent. And the fields of heroin, fields of opium, were already bought and sold. All the Afghanis did at that point was buy it and sell it as opium, and the opium was processed somewhere else. Then the Afghanis were taught how to process, and they started processing heroin for themselves. It wasn't the same quality as was being processed by governments, let's say. And so that basically fueled a lot of problems in Asia. So the same as the Golden Triangle did. That's what they got their money to keep fighting. They had the Kuomintang army which ran to Burma and hiding because Mao took over China. They had to make money to survive, so they created the heroin industry. And for many years, decades, they controlled it. Then when the war switched over to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the Russians came into Afghanistan. They changed the location, but we're still doing the same things. They've been doing the same thing like that in South America. CIA money, that kind of black money, has been used to fuel counter revolutions all over the world. In the turn of the century. I don't know the exact date, but there was an elected minister, prime minister. There was an elected politician who was elected president, democratically elected president of Afghanistan. First elections that they ever had. His name was Mossadegh. Okay, he was a great guy. Yeah, he was progressive socialist, but he made he took back British Petroleum. He nationalized British Petroleum. British Petroleum was in Iran. They owned every bit of oil in Iran.
True.
And he came out and said, why are these people here taking our money? So he nationalized it. And even to this day, the reason that Iran is oil rich and so rich is because what Mossadegh did so many years ago. At that point, one of the Roosevelt brothers came to Iran, right? And he paid people to go protest in the street. He gave everybody $10. Everybody $10. You give everybody $10. You have 800,000 people on the street. So they overthrew Mossadegh, but they put him under house arrest for the rest of his life, right? The rest of his life, and then but he freed Iran from the British Petroleum. So after that, they put the Shah of Iran in. Funny thing is the Shah of Iran had a legal opium program. If you were an addiction in Iran at the time, you could register with the program, and they gave you the opium for free. Government-sponsored program. Good opium too. Was red, looked like Tootsie Rolls. So the British had a legal medical program giving heroin to addicts. The Iranians had a legal opium that they gave legal opium. So did the Thais. The Thais had a legal opium program, but they stopped that in the 50s because of pressure from the American government because everybody was getting addicted. So they wanted to stop the addiction problem. Now before in the days in the 50s, there were opium dens in Bangkok. There was opium dens all over the place. Now you never see an opium den. Then they switched them from opium to heroin. Then you saw a lot of heroin addiction in Thailand due to that golden triangle. And the same thing, you have so many addicts in Afghanistan. They have no control of the government. It's there to do. They have no money. They have no income. They have none of this. The only relief that they have is they get high on heroin, and so that's what they do. So the government that's the government that is really ruling the drug war, right? Well, at the same time, people like you and me are going to jail for it. They are making the money off of it. A guy that I know that was working in Amsterdam with the skunk, man. He went to work for this group. And when he went to work for this group, he was working with a group of Americans who were working for that cartel. And they were growing the weed and selling the weed in the States. So when he went there, he improved the quality of the weed. So one of his friends said to him, listen, everyone's gonna get, but they're all wanted. This group was all wanted in America. He said, everyone here is gonna get arrested. So he warned them. So that guy, his name is the Reefer Man. The Reefer Man warned the Reefer Man that the bus was coming down, right? So he's the only one that managed to get out of that, right? He got out of there. The guy who gave him the information, he got killed for that, for letting that guy go, because the CIA, the governments were using him, and as soon as they finished using him, they were going to put him in jail and take away his seed bank. Government's been playing that game all along.
How does the CIA and the cartel both coexist in the same drug industry?
They run the cartels.
Okay.
They're the big guys.
So it's been like that all along.
All along.
Okay.
Been like that. That's how they get their black money to be able to
the whole thing.
The
No,
whole
no,
thing.
I'll just move it this side.
That's how they make their money, to be able to do the illegal things that they do around the world. You know,
Why do you think the CIA is involved in so many things and other countries' affairs? Since it's not like funded by the government, but it's the government that puts them in these places. That's a tough question.
that's a tough question because they talk about that like there's an underground government
Right.
within the government.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so they want to be able to have everybody on the same page. And to get everybody on the same page, they have to do certain things. I mean, there's an expression called a banana republic, right?
Yeah.
Do you know that in America, all the bananas look the same? Perfect. They're all perfect. They're cloned.
Okay.
It's a clone. When you eat a banana in America, it's a cloned banana.
Why? We cannot grow bananas?
They have a clone. They have a production model.
But why?
Because it's a production model. It's easily sellable. And it's easily marketable. You know what I mean? So there are countries that are completely banana republics. Their whole society is run on survives on the production of bananas, which are exported to America, right? It's called the Banana Republic. So that's what they do, and they've been doing that since forever. When Mossadegh was a good guy, he was a good guy. Not a bad person. He wasn't. We have the problems today with the Ayatollah and this and that. If we would have treated those people fairly from the very beginning, we wouldn't have those problems today. But in their, I'll give you a good example. The CIA has satellites that fly around the world, and when they fly around the world, they do surveys. They know where everything that's valuable in your country, where it lies. Like, they found rubies on Himalganesh. They got that from, satellite information. So you have this government within a government kind of thing. And so, the whole world would be a different place if it was truly democratic. But it ain't.